February 19th, 2020 meeting of the Lake Havasu City Airport Advisory Board. The first item is the Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Tucker, would you conduct a roll call, please?
Shannon Stebbins.
Here.
Lewis Worthy.
Here.
Dave McNary. Vince Tolomeo.
Here.
Brian Schultz.
Here.
Mark Zeef.
Here.
Shannon Hicks. Here. Ed Weber. Raleigh Ballas. Jim Dolan.
Here.
Damon Anderson.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item, item 4, is an open call to the public. I'm going to read a short paragraph dictated by Arizona Open Meeting Law. We will now have an open call to the public for citizens wishing to address the board on issues within the jurisdiction of the board. Your comments must be limited to 5 minutes or less. If you wish to address an item already on today's agenda, you should wait until that item is announced for a public hearing. At the conclusion of the open call to the public, individual members of the board may respond to criticisms made by those who address the board, may ask staff to review a matter, or may ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. However, board members cannot discuss or take legal action on matters not already on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board? Mr. Stokely.
There it is. Thank you. Tom Stokely, rent hangar 74, Lake Havasu City, resident for 19 years. So what I've noticed here recently with the advent of the new bar out near Havasu Heights is we have a lot more side-by-side traffic along the airport. And I was looking at it the other day, everybody comes down through the dirt's kicking up, a lot more dust around the airport, until they get to around the fuel tanks, the old fuel tanks there, where you go into the hangars. And then they can turn up on the road and get on the asphalt, and then the dust kind of goes away. Down near Havasu Air Center, there's a cutout in the asphalt, a cutout in the curb, and a gate there, which I think we could build a little ramp there and alleviate a lot of the dust and things like that are blowing up into our, from all the side-by-sides, because it has been a lot of traffic, which is cool. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that I think we can alleviate some of the dust around the airport if we change the location where they can hit the asphalt. And there is a gate already there. There is a cutout in the asphalt already there. And I think a little bit of dirt and a little ramp that they can get up there, and it would save all across all the private hangars, all the way across, all the way to the fuel tanks, them driving and kicking up a lot of dust. That's it.
Anybody else like to address the board? Any comments from board members? Let me just take just a moment to introduce Mr. Vince Tolomeo, who is our new board member. Thank you for volunteering and helping out.
Pleasure to be here.
The next item is approval of the October 23rd, which is our last meeting minutes, which they were provided via email. Does anyone have is there any discussion on the minutes? I entertain a motion to approve them.
Chairman, motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Zeff. Need a second, please.
Second.
And we have a second. Without objection, the minutes are approved. Item 6 is communication announcements and airport supervisor's report. And item 6.1 is the supervisor's report. I turn it over to Mr. Anderson for that.
Thanks, Shannon. It's been a bit since we've been here. I'm going to try to make it a little short, but we have give you an update on the military operations. I know a lot of people are seeing those. That's been a huge hit lately. We've already actually reached our annual, yearly operations for military already in the last 6 months. Been around 360 aircraft, over 200,000 gallons sold, which is great. And I hope that trend will just keep continuing to build, which it's very likely. I'm sure y'all have received some packets we sent out in the mail. They're kind of a catch-all, some update information forms that are going out to everybody. We're also going to, whenever we get those in, we're going to be handing out the stickers for the cars if you want one and need one. And that's also, a precursor to the hangar inspections as well, and we're waiting to get some of that information back and just reach out to people to schedule these hangar inspections. We're not getting a lot of that as of right now. Cindy is just going to start filling in the month of March for hangar inspections, and then we will, if we haven't heard from you, we'll let you know that that's the day we're planning on doing it, and hopefully you'll reach back to us at that point, to make that a possibility for us to get that done. Is we're hoping to just try to wipe them all out in the month of March and just get it over and done with and make that a yearly thing, around that time. Then the taxiway project that we had going, we had the taxiway project, the rehabilitation of that, as well as the soil cement project. We're all on the books for the summer, breaking ground on construction. We actually were actually the candidate for the supplemental funding for the Taxiway Alpha project, which was a really big thing, a good thing. You don't normally get that, but that doesn't guarantee that we were going to get it. It just meant that we were the first candidate that Arizona was putting in for that. And the supplemental fund is a separate fund as compared to the discretionary fund. And not sure if we just didn't make a high priority list on the discretionary funds or not, but the writing's kind of on the wall. The people in Phoenix haven't heard back from DC yet to say that we are getting this supplemental funding, so we're going to start to assume that we're not getting it at this point. And then we also weren't on the books for the discretionary funding. And it doesn't sound, it kind of sounds bad at first, but I think it's actually a good thing. It's going to give us a little more time to plan out for the connectors that we have that we're putting in between the runways, because the FAA is not going to be willing to fund all those connectors, and especially the high-speed connectors. They say it's a capacity issue, and we don't meet that capacity to need those. So we're looking at doing some of that. And then the other benefit that came out of that conversation with the FAA the other day was that our runway rehabilitation was scheduled for 2023, 2024, and I realize that that's the worst piece of pavement out there and the most critical piece. And so we actually, in that conversation, we were able to get the runway rehabilitate moved up to 2022. So I think that's a very positive and beneficial thing, and it's going to give us a little more time to work on the taxiway and the different connectors and the geometry of it and such. And that's all I have.
Questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Lee?
Mr. Anderson, I was wondering if you could take a moment to address the email that you sent to us back in December of 19. It was very interesting, and the public wasn't aware of it because we didn't have a meeting since then. If you have it with you, I'm not sure if you have it with you, but you spoke of runway fog seal, new hangars, shade ports, new card readers at the gates, appraisals, lighted X's for the runway closures, and security cameras. Maybe you can give a brief statement on those for the public.
Sure, those are things that I'm going to be requesting in the city CIP budget, and some of those things won't actually even fall into the CIP. They're just going to be some one-time supplemental things I'll be requesting, but that's a different capital improvement plan other than the FAA's airport capital improvement plan, and I will be actively, requesting those things. Don't know if I'll get all of them, but
Are the card readers in yet for the gates?
no. No, we don't have those yet. And, any of this stuff, if I get it approved, is all going to be after July. It's all going to be for fiscal year 21.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I think it was the last meeting that you spoke about security at the gates and stopping, and we talked about signage. what's your plan on getting the signage up? There's nothing there that says anything about it.
Paul is actively working on that. I'm surprised he hasn't got that done yet, but that will be something. I know he went through and tried to shorten up those wait times where people didn't have to wait so long. I don't know if y'all have noticed that or not, but he tried to set them down to where as soon as you get through it, it's going to start shutting, and hopefully that's all going to work out. And we should be getting the signs put on the gates as well.
Anyone else? Item 6.2.
No, Mr. Chair, just one more thing.
Go ahead.
Can you speak briefly to how well the terminal is working out for the military?
It's definitely working out great. Yeah, like I say, I mean, we've already reached that annual operations count already, and every time some of these new guys come in, they see those facilities, and it just makes them want to come back even more. And there's going to be an operation going on this weekend where there's going to be a couple of ospreys come in, they're going to base there and go out and do their missions, come back, refuel, go out and do their missions. And it's been a huge hit. It's, I mean, with the amount of fuel that's been pumped already and the fuel flowage fees that we've got back, it's all been recuperated, all the money that was spent to it.
Sounds like it's working out well.
It is.
Good.
Item 6.2 is upcoming events, which is also yours.
You know, don't have a whole lot. I know I've just started conversations with the Hangar 24 for the Air Fest. They're in the middle of their Air Fest over in Redling right now, so they don't have a lot of time to talk about this one. But that's coming. They're shooting for November 14th for that is the date. And then also this weekend is going to be the annual RV fly-in. I don't know if any of y'all are familiar with that. But, group of, I'm not real familiar with it, to be honest myself. I just hear that there's, you know, roughly 20 to 40 RVs will be in doing some formation flying, things like that throughout the
So this is
weekend.
their formation training camp.
Yes, so.
Any questions or comments?
The Airfest is November 14th, 2021 or 2020?
2020.
2020?
Move on to, Mr. Ziff, did you have?
Just one more thing regarding the email from December. Can you speak a little bit to that grant that was approved for that, the state grant that was approved for the, regards to the soil cement project?
Yeah, so we got that grant. It's in. It's going to be put on hold as well. That was one of the other projects that was going to happen this summer while we were doing the taxiway project. Seeing as how we're having the issues with the connectors that are connecting the taxiway to the runway, having to figure out exactly where those are going to go. And until we can figure that out and nail down that spot, we won't be able to do the soil cement project because they go around that connector. And with an ADOT grant, which the soil cement is, we have 4 years to move on that grant. It's a little different than the FAA. So we have, you know, plenty of time to just do that at our leisure whenever it makes good sense.
What are your issues with the taxiway locations?
They only wanted to fund 5 total connectors, and we were trying to look at where the most logical spot would be for those, and we came up with the idea of 2,000, 4,000, and 6,000 feet, you know, from either end. That's where they would be. The one thing that's come up here lately is that the guys finally started doing the engineering on the connector that was going to be in the middle at 4,000, which is right there, and a lot of you users are aware of that. That's a really large grade change between the runway and the taxiway right there. And FAA standards that you don't have any grades over 2%. So now we've run into the problem where we couldn't do a 90-degree connector right there. And the only way we could actually get that slope to be down to 2 degrees would be to do a high speed, which they don't want that either. And then the other thought is we could possibly raise a taxiway up to make it to where that slope would meet, but then that's going to have a trickle effect, and it's going to go down to the aprons, and we just have to figure out how to work all the way down to do that. And so in all reality, with this project being pushed back, it's going to give us a little more time to work out those details with that and where exactly they're going to go. As of right now, we're looking at one that's going to be closer to where Alpha 4 is right now, up by the Compass Rose area, and then another one that's going to be more or less between Alpha 2 and Alpha 3, right in between Bravo 1 and Bravo 2, actually. But that's just going to be 2 connectors throughout the entire runway other than the 2 on the ends.
Any other comments? We'll move on to the public hearing items. Item 7.1 is discussion and possible action to recommend adoption of final draft of the airport master plan And I'll turn it over to Mr. Anderson again, and we have our consultants, I think, on the phone that are going to participate as well.
That's correct, yeah. Matt Quick and Jacob Allen are on the phone, on the line from Kaufman and Associates, and I'll turn it over to you, Matt, if you can hear us well.
All right. Thank you, Damon. I can hear you all. Can you guys hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Okay. Well, again, thank you everyone for allowing us the opportunity to share briefly on the master plan. And I'm getting a really bad echo on our end, so I don't know. Hopefully it's not the case on your end. I'll try to power through that. But like Damon had indicated, we have been working on the airport master plan over the course of the last several months. We actually started it back in October of 2018. It's typically about an 18-month process from beginning to end. So we are in the final phase of the master plan process. I know I've had an opportunity to meet a few of you, having been involved with the Planning Advisory Committee. And so we've held 4 separate Planning Advisory Committee meetings during the course of the process. But I'll just be brief this evening. I just wanted to share briefly for those who may not be real familiar what an airport master plan is. Just the short of it is it provides a vision document for Lake Havasu City and other decision makers regarding the future development of the airport. The FAA recommends that an airport update its master plan on average every 7 to 10 years based upon the demand that's occurring at the airport. The last master plan was completed back in 2009. So this was certainly a timely reassessment of what's going on activity-wise from a local, regional, and national perspective in the aviation industry as it relates to the city of Lake Havasu. So obviously having commissioned this master plan in late 2018 and looking to finish it up here in the coming weeks. Obviously the master plan does look at aviation demand in general at the airport. For Lake Havasu City Municipal Airport, that really focuses around 2 main demand segments, one being the number of based aircraft, and the other being the number of annual aircraft operations. So we took a look at that in great detail and came up with a forecast of demand that really accounts for over the next 20 years. The master plan is a 20-year planning document. So we forecasted aviation activity over the course of the next 20 years at the airport. The importance of the master plan and being able to identify different demand segments and their forecasts that are tied to those is really to help provide a roadmap for the future growth and development of the airport. And toward the end of the master plan, we actually had a meeting back in December that outlined kind of a culmination of everything that's been done and prepared so far as a result of the master plan. And we put forth a recommended development concept and then an associated capital improvement program that outlines potential projects. And it kind of falls in line with what Damon was just talking about in terms of coordinating with the FAA as well as the ADOT Aeronautics Division in terms of being able to identify projects during the future course of growth and development at the airport. You know, some of these projects are obviously going to be safety related. They're going to be high priorities with the FAA as well as the state. Others are going to be maintenance projects to pavements and so on and so forth. And then we've also identified some particular demand projects that will be driven by, again, future growth and development potential at the airport. One of the components of the master plan is an airport layout plan drawing set. That's a technical set of drawings that are recognized by the FAA. And as we move into this final phase, again, we are seeking approval of the master plan from the local level, meaning the city of Lake Havasu, next week at the city council meeting. And then what we'll do is we've already prepared a draft airport layout plan drawing set, but we will coordinate that with the FAA here in the coming weeks. And then they will review that document, and once they approve that, that'll really serve as the roadmap for the future development of the airport. Any potential projects that would be occurring at the airport in the future should show up on that ALP drawing in order for those projects to be eligible for grant funding, whether it be through the FAA or the ADOT Aeronautics Division. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of what an airport master plan is, why it is important. Like I had mentioned, we've had Planning Advisory Committee meetings. At the initiation of the study process, we identified approximately 20 people that represent various entities, whether it be within the city of Lake Havasu or the FAA, ADOT, Economic Development, the Military Airspace Working Group. Those are just a variety or an example of a variety of the different stakeholders that were brought to the table. We had 4 planning advisory committee meetings that met during the course of the process. We also allowed opportunities for the general public and just airport stakeholders and tenants to get involved. We had 3 public information workshops as well that were conducted. And like I had mentioned, back in December of 19, we held our 4th and final planning advisory committee meeting and our 3rd and final public information workshop. So since that time, we've gathered material, all the material that's been prepared as a result of the draft working papers, and we've compiled all that into a draft final report and actually submitted that to the city just last week, and that document will be utilized at the local level for approval or adoption of the master plan through the city council process next week. Like I had mentioned earlier, as far as the demand segments, and many of you guys have been involved with the study process or are probably aware of what's going on out at the airport, but a based aircraft and the number of annual aircraft operations were the 2 main demand segments. 2018 was the base year of the study. Like I'd mentioned, that's when we got it started back in October, November timeframe of 18. At that time, the airport was experiencing 160 based aircraft and approximately 45,000 aircraft operations. Now, obviously, there's no control tower at the airport, so that is an estimate based upon other forecast techniques that have been put forth as it relates to the number of based aircraft and the types of operations. So we estimate about 45,000 operations at the airport for the base year. Based upon our forecast analysis, we see those 2 demand segments increasing over the course of the next 20 years, with based aircraft increasing to approximately 200, and then the number of annual aircraft operations increasing to approximately 65,000. We have taken those numbers, vetted those through the Planning Advisory Committee meeting as well as city and airport staff. We've coordinated those forecasts with the FAA, and the FAA has come back and approved them for planning purposes. So those were the numbers that we utilized, and the importance of those numbers is that they help us in terms of identifying future facility needs that kind of tell the story and play into the overall development of the master plan to where we're at today in terms of being able to identify a development concept and then associated capital improvement projects. So I don't know if any of you have had a chance to look at the material toward the latter part of the master plan. I don't want to go into great detail, but I can certainly help answer any questions that you guys might have. But we do have a development concept that kind of, again, serves as a roadmap for the future development of the airport as demand would dictate. We identify a lot of projects in the capital improvement program that we also have included in Chapter 6 of the draft final master plan report. And then we also have some appendices in the back end as it relates to the draft airport layout plan drawing set, like I had mentioned, will be going forth before the FAA for review and ultimate approval here once action is taken from a local perspective on the master plan. And then we had a couple other ancillary items to accomplish as it relates to the master plan. One was the development of an energy assessment. We had a sub-consultant on our team that performed an energy assessment of on-airport facilities that were owned by the airport, whether they be hangars or the terminal building, things like that, to help provide some ideas for the airport and the city to be able to better utilize or better approach it from an energy efficiency standpoint, whether it be airfield items or hangars or various facilities on the airport. Then we also had an economic benefit study that was conducted, and that's included in an appendix of the draft final master plan report. And we had Dr. Lee McFeeters with Arizona State University that helped conduct that study, and he actually came up in December to provide the findings of that study, which are included in the draft final as well. So, like I said, moving forward, the next step is obviously we're going to be up there next week and present to the city council just a brief overview of the master plan and the findings. And then once the city takes action on the document, we will coordinate the draft ALP set with the FAA for review and ultimate approval, and then package up everything, and that will be the final master plan report that the city can utilize for future growth and development of the airport. At this time, I'll hand it back over to you, Damon, and if anybody has any questions or comments, please let us know.
And very good. I appreciate that, Matt. Does anybody have any questions for them?
Mr. Chair, I have one question. In that economic study, what was the gross annual figure that showed was roughly brought into dollar amounts that was brought into Lake Havasu City annually? Or daily, I mean?
Okay. Daily, the number was pretty impressive. Let me
Yeah, if
pull it
you
up
want,
here.
I
I can
can,
tell you guys. Yeah, Damon, I don't know if you have it available as well.
30,
I believe the annual
36.
number was $34 million a
34,
year is what it
36
brought
million.
to the
I've got it
community.
here somewhere.
Yeah, total economic benefit when you consider on airport plus kind of the multiplier effect that goes into it. Like Damon said, it was over $34 million that it equates to in overall economic benefit to the city of Lake Havasu. As far as the daily, there was a breakdown in the report of daily. I'm just,
Roughly 100,000 a day?
yeah, probably what it would equate to. Bear
The
with
direct
me.
economic benefit was $34,121 per year, 34 million.
Yeah, 34.1 million per year.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
I was fortunate enough to participate in the Planning and Advisory Committee, and I was most impressed at how responsive the process was to input from users. There were input made by people that are here in the audience that was adopted. So I was heartened by that. I see nothing but good stuff in it from me. It's pretty lengthy in length here and pretty broad in scope, but from my perspective, I certainly hope that the city council will approve it and that the FAA approves their portion of it as well. Anyone else have any comments?
Great, thank you.
Would anybody like to make a motion to recommend approval?
I motion we recommend an approval.
Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval by the city council of the master plan survey study. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Is there any discussion? We're ready to vote. Is anyone opposed? Unanimously carries. Thank you, Mr. Damon. Any other comments?
No, I just want to say thanks to Matt and Jake. You know, they're just a pleasure to work with, amazing knowledge, and, you know, work with us every step of the way with all the dumb questions that we come up with and things like that. And really appreciate y'all's help. It's been great.
No dumb questions, Damon.
And we appreciate
Not a problem. Yeah, we really appreciate working with you guys. It's been a great group, and we'll see some of you maybe next week at the council meeting.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
All right, are we good to go, or do you need us to hang around, Damon?
No, I
We can
think
do
we're
either way.
good. Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay. All right, thank you all. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, the next item is item 7.2. It's discussion and possible action regarding a future planning session, and it's Councilman Dolan to present.
Alrighty, well, thank you guys. As we had a good conversation at the last meeting in October, I kind of want to continue that, give us an opportunity where we can have an open discussion. It's like I said, it's kind of hard in this advisory board commission to have topics that are not agendized and approved from the beginning. So, and then like I said, with the planning session, that was what I thought would be probably the best thing to do, like we did with the council retreat. We did it earlier this month. It's where we can all come together. We can talk about general topics, get feelings on which direction we might want to go in with certain things. We can also get explanations on how they are now. At our council retreat, we did discuss the commissions as a whole, meaning planning and zoning is separate, but mainly with the Airport Advisory Board and the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. And then when we pulled the code, we realized they were similar but different in certain areas. So we recommended staff come back and give us some insight on how we might bring them closer together. Also coming from that, you know, looking at some of the topics, yes, there was mention of budgets and fees, but you know, I wanted more explanation at what level and how we can go about doing that to fit it into our meetings so we can have that input. But like I said, I'm looking forward to, if you guys want to make a motion to approve it, we can plan something either for the next meeting in March. I'm not available the third Wednesday, so it'd have to be the 4th, or we could do it in April. And like I said, we could have a discussion without having the agenda items and give us a little bit of leeway to discuss some items. So If anybody has any questions or
So the topic for this planning session is
just the airport advisory board.
how it's structured and what
Ha-
it's gonna
Just
do?
in,
and
yeah,
how it's
just
gonna-
in general, yeah, we're just gonna talk about the, like Kelly, so for example, it'll be myself, Damon will be there, Kelly, the city attorney, will be there and kind of go over what the code says. We'll probably get some information from what staff is considering, what the changes might be made that they might recommend to the council. Like one thing we did talk about was maybe doing quarterly meetings or as needed. You know, explaining some of the processes so we, you know, can make sure we're abiding by the open meeting laws. I think that's the biggest concern is, like Damon's, for example, when he gives updates, there's a kind of a fine line of what questions we can ask, and then we cross that line and we go into discussion. We're not supposed to have discussion, but we can have an update, and, you know, so just to kind of give us, just so we're all on the same playing field and we answer some of the questions we had at the last meeting, that we can have it in an environment where we can ask those questions, and we'll give notice to the public can come, anybody that wants to come can sit in on the meeting, and we can just have a little bit, yeah.
So is it a regular meeting like this? And at some point
No,
we-
what it'll probably be is because staff is gonna be there as well, they were trying to see if they could do it sometimes during the day, whether it's a 9 or 10, or maybe if we started a little bit early, like 3 or 4, so that way the city attorney and the staff could be here and not have to stay late, so.
Obviously, many people at the airport full-time employed, so
Yeah.
it's really hard to do one in the morning and have anybody attend.
Yeah.
And if 4 of us attend, doesn't that violate?
No, because we are posting it, and then the whole board can be here as well, so alternates can be there. Well, you know, some of the rest of the council could show up if they wish as well, because it's posted. As long as we're giving the public notice that we're meeting, and these are kind of this is generally what we're going to be talking about, and we're not taking action. We're just talking about potential roads we may go down. So to at a meeting. Yeah, so we could take action at an official meeting, but we wouldn't take any action. Like, for example, at our retreat, we just give the staff a direction to go into, so. But it gives us the ability to have the discussion we can't have up here. So, and we even discussed maybe even having it at the airport, we could have it here, so. We just kind of figure that out in the next month or two if it's something you guys wanted to do, so.
So this basic topic is the whole structure of the airport advisory board and
Yeah.
how the agendas are gonna be paired,
Yep.
what's on them.
And then, like I said, what we have in the code now, what the staff is considering, because like I said, it'll also give it'll give staff some direction, also give the council some direction, so we can kind of see what's working and what's not. Yeah, and just give everyone an opportunity to ask questions, and so.
Mr. Ziff?
Does the staff feel like the process is broken right now, or the board is failing in some way to follow proper procedure?
Not failing, it's just, I feel like like I said last meeting, we have a little bit of an identity crisis of maybe what the board feels that they do and what we should do and what we can do. And from me being a new council member and learning the order of what we can and what we cannot do, you know, because we're all bound by open meeting laws, so just you factor that in, it's a whole nother degree of, when I became a council member, they sent me to Phoenix for 2 days and taught me all the do's and don'ts, and so there's some areas there everybody needs to kind of be aware of. I think I talked to somebody after the meeting and they said, well, I'm hesitant to call so-and-so because I know we're on the board together. Well, it's nice just to know the rules so we can all play by them. You know, you can call anybody and talk to them about anything, but if it's something where it's going to be at the advisory board, then in theory you can only talk to 3 people, and you got to be careful, because if I talk to you and he talks to you and you, then that's 4 people, and the city can get in trouble, but also now the individual person can be fined for it as well. So it's just something that we want to just let everyone know all the rules and how, and like I said, if there's, you know, as we had a discussion last time, some people feel that the advisor, yeah, I can't get too much to talk, but these are things we can just talk about at the planning session, so.
It's kind of like the handbook that we were all given in our training sessions as board members. I was given a certificate of completion for going through the training session to be a board member, to make sure everybody's in compliance with that, pretty much. Okay.
Yeah, and like I said, then we can ask questions, we can ask, you know, the city attorney's here, she definitely knows a lot more than me about this stuff, so, yeah, it gives you guys an opportunity to voice concerns or how you see the board, and, you know, like I said, it's up to you guys if you wanted to call one for the next meeting.
Ms. Hicks?
So basically, this is more of like, for lack of a better word, like a brainstorming session in a way to changes to how the committees are run? And is this for every committee in Havasu, or is it just the Airport Advisory Board that's going through this change?
The only two committees would be us and the planning and zoning is somewhat different, but it'd be the Airport Advisory Board and the Parks and Rec Board. This was something I recommended to the staff, that I'd like to give us this opportunity to do it so we can meet like we do as city council members. We can have that kind of little bit lower level discussion, general topics where we can ask some of these questions and have this back and forth conversation that we can't do in these structured meetings. It's my understanding, I believe the Parks and Rec Board might do the same thing as well. I think it'd be it's something I'd like to see the boards do yearly as new members come on and leave, just so, so everybody's on the same page.
It's been obvious to me that we're playing under a different set of rules than Parks and Rec is right now.
And according to code, there are some things that are a little bit different, and that's what they want to work on, but like I said, and I just want to make sure we're working within that, and we're not getting any of us in trouble for violating open meeting laws, and that we're all on the same page, so.
Or would this be more of a how-to and a do's and don'ts of being a board member?
It could be. Like I said, it's more of just it'd be more of a general discussion about the Airport Advisory Board. So we could have topics, anything regarding Airport Advisory Board. We're not going to be like, okay, so let airport runway 7. We're not going to be that specific. It's just going to be pertaining to our board. So, and like I said, we give the public enough notice. Everybody knows. Everybody can be here, and we let them know the council will be here, and then we can have these discussions. One thing about our job is we just need to make sure that the public knows when we're making decisions.
So you're proposing to have this really to discuss what the airport board is going to have on the agenda, what we're going to do,
Yep.
and how.
Because there's been some concerns that have come, and I'd like for everybody to be able to voice those concerns, and we can talk about the process, and like I said, just make sure we're all in the same field. And plus we also too know that the do's and don'ts of the open meeting law, and it is a little bit more restrictive than I think sometimes we think it is. So, like at the last meeting, I didn't realize we couldn't vote, and it wasn't agendaized to make, we had talked about doing a committee. Well, it wasn't agendaized for action, so we didn't tell the public that's what we were going to do, so we can't do it. So.
Okay, this is a public hearing. Anybody in the audience like to make a comment on this proposal? Seeing none. Any of the board members have any discussion? Is anyone would like to propose that we have this meeting?
Definitely something we need to address, definitely need to propose the meeting so we are on the same page and we learn the rules of what, if we don't know the rules to what we're accountable, we can't play the game. My only concern would be the timing. I know a couple of the members on this board own businesses that they run during the day, and it's hard enough for them to get here by 5:30. I understand the city attorney has a job to do, but if there's one evening that they need to stay late, I don't think that that's too much to ask. That would be my only little bit of advice with that.
We do, I think, a yearly training on boards and committees. They give us the handbook and we go over, I don't know if I've taken 2 of them already, on one for each board, and they go over the do's and don'ts and make me aware of what I can and can't do. And I thought this could just be brought up as a future agenda item to discuss it, where we could bring in the city attorney and stuff, and at a regular board meeting with the public available.
This is more far-reaching than that, and this has to do with the basic structure of what we're going to have on the board agendas and what the board's going to be able to talk about, and the very basics of what this board is or is not going to do, and that's very difficult to do in this setting.
And even now, it's kind of hard for me to have this conversation because I can't delve in. We can't have a conversation that we didn't tell the public a few days ago we were going to have. Because, well, if I knew you guys were going to talk about that, I'd have been there. So we have to give the public time to let them know when we're going to discuss certain things. So this gives us that ability in saying, on this date, we're going to meet and discuss airport advisory issues, non-agenda. Yeah, it just gives us the ability to talk about the advisory board in a more general term. So, like I said, I can definitely pass that back and find out what, how flexible we can be. If it was at, 4, then that way at least they're here for an, so we're not pushing it too far into the evening.
I I would
Yeah,
say
I would-
5:30, I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I would really agree with that. If the, especially this is a one-time meeting to plan so that everybody's on the same page or gets their ideas out there. I mean, it would be really nice if they could accommodate a later schedule. I'll do my very best, as I always will.
Yeah, from my vantage point, I can be here at any time, but a lot of people can't, and I'm seeing 5:30 and probably 2 hours worth, as a guess. But anyway, you have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second.
Is there any more discussion? Are we ready to vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion
Opposed.
carries. Opposed. One opposed. Future discussion items. We are remiss in that we have not had an election for chairman or vice chairman because we haven't had meetings. So at the next time we have a meeting, we probably ought to have an election for chairman and vice chairman. So I'd like to have that as a future discussion item for action. Anyone else?
I'll second that. We have to second them now.
Oh, that's right. We do.
Yes.
Anything else? The next scheduled meeting is,
He had something,
I'm sorry.
and I have something.
It has come to my attention, the Shadeport project that we did, I guess it'd be in 2019, the Pearlettes Civil Air Patrol would like to come back and finish that. So we probably need to make that an agenda item to discuss.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. And Mr. Z?
I'd like to see if Mr. Anderson could look into the dust problem, if you can do some research maybe and bring back some information, the pros and cons of what could be done for the concerns of the public and their hangars for the next agenda.
Yeah, sure, you bet.
Do we have a second for that?
I second.
Are there any more items? The next scheduled meeting is Wednesday, March 18th, and as staff, you will have to put together you're not available that date, so flexible to some other date to do a planning session in lieu of a monthly meeting, I guess. Would you like to?
We could, yeah, and that's up to you. Like I said, we can definitely follow up. That is spring break, so if anybody else is out of town for the kids' spring break, just to be aware of that date, so.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Without objection, we are adjourned.